That's your boy Gooch.
That is the homie Keys, and that is the ambassador of analytics, Jeff.
I am
And
glad to be on the huddle with you, gentlemen.
we're glad to have you back, Jeff. We were supposed to have Sean with us as well, but Sean's not feeling well. Sean, we hope that you're feeling better, and we look forward to having both of you guys on as guests at the same time here in the future.
Get better,
Yeah.
Sean.
Sorry to miss you, Sean. And Gooch says vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc.
Yep.
Helps with the immune system, brother. Pop it daily.
By the way, this is the RogueHead Huddle with Gooch and Keys with our special guest Jeff again, presented by RGR Football. Gooch?
We appreciate all y'all for checking us out today. Make sure you check out the RGR store, pick up some merchandise. I did think I heard Ryan say did he say he had cups now? Obviously, some new shirts. Go back and check out previous episodes. Check out the huddle. I'm going to put this out there as a shameless plug. Check out the Mod Fathers picks. It is really fun. We kind of it's a different take from the three of us, and then of course the Mod Father and a couple other people with Thunder Dan. So go check us out and let's have some fun.
Yeah, that's members only, and it's rated how many R's? At least two R's for RGR. So it's rated double R with the G in the middle.
And if you ever
Yes.
watched After Dark, you know there's probably a third R in there because, well, it is me.
All right. Well, we are gonna hit the big topic here. This one might take a while, so let's start with it and let's see where it takes us here. Thoughts on the Bengals game? I'll let you guys go first because I'm gonna have multiple takes to argue. So if you guys cover one of my takes, I'll just go the opposite way and try to get everything as balanced in there as possible.
Excellent. Gooch, you want to go first? You want me to go?
Oh, you go right ahead, brother. Just like the pigs pool. We're gonna start with Jeff.
Get the worst out of the way. I feel you. All right. Yeah, let's have some back and forth on all this stuff. This will be good. This will be fun. The Spags versus Flags. Have we said that yet? I love that. That is so excellent.
Right. Hat tip to whoever that was. I don't remember who it was in the comments on the post game stream that threw that out there. So kudos to you. Spags versus
Yeah.
Flags.
Yeah, pretty good. Hey, my overall observation, I'll just start with this. Our defensive backs could not, for the most part, stay with their big three wide receivers. You know, Fenton and Ward and Snead, they all made some plays, had some pass defense things going on Pro Football Reference. They mentioned a pass defense. Chase caught 11 of 12 targets. Higgins caught 3 of 5. Boyd caught 4 of 6. And that's 18 out of 23 that those big three caught for like a billion yards. You know, we didn't take the ball away for the first time in at least 8 games. And it's good that we didn't give it away. But, you know, when you look at the first half, they only had 137 yards of offense if you took that one long catch that Chase, you know, ran down there with about 2 minutes left at the end of the first half.
Was that the Sorensen play where once again he stopped at the sideline to drink some Kool-Aid?
No, that was the one where I think it was Bolton took kind of a bad angle and
Okay.
Chase ducked around him and then he ran.
Oh, the one where he just outran everybody. Okay. All right.
Yeah, down the middle of the field. Yeah, that was that one. So, you know, if you take that play away, 137 yards of offense isn't bad. So if you think of it in that respect, maybe there's a little bit of a justification that the defensive philosophy was working. But as we saw, you know, it was just too much of an ask to have our DBs play, you know, man to man the entire game. So that's the first observation I had.
You really don't want me to get into this, but I will. I think this game showed the arrogance and stubbornness of Spags. Playing his defense and thinking that is going to be sufficient. What I don't think a lot of people really, and I'm going to dig in, and we're probably going to go back and forth about a lot of this, but during the 8-game winning streak, you didn't see a lot of Neiman and Sorensen. What you don't know, or what you may not have noticed, is that as that win streak kept going up, he kept inserting them more and more, as if like he was, he's trying to get back to the old him, to the point to where Sorensen and Neiman, I think I looked it up, played somewhere between 30 and 40% of the snaps on Sunday, and you see the result. And then another thing is, I don't know. I'm not a defensive coordinator. I don't claim to be one. All I did was play football, and I've watched a ton of it on film and live. And I'm thinking, even in high school, if one guy is wearing you out, stop that guy. I mean, that's I would like to think that's football 101. I mean, after the 72-yarder, I'm thinking surely you would put Snead on him and then shade Juan over, or put Tyron on him just to give him the jam, and then have a corner pick him up, and then still have Juan shade over. I don't understand the thinking that even on one play that Sorensen is fast enough with taking his water breaks to keep up with Jamar Chase running down any side of the field, even in the middle. And yet he continuously played his man single high and got abused for it. And I said on the live stream, I guarantee you, and maybe Ryan's right, but Andy was mad at the post-game conference, a press conference. And I know that he was seeing what we all were seeing. And Andy's not the type of coach to throw people under the bus, or even say, well, we'll talk to Spags about that, like Belichick did with Brady's footballs. But he had to see, like, because we were 28-14. Was it 28-14 at the half?
2017, but we were up 28-14, yeah.
I mean, Andy put on a display, and the defense, for some reason, not for some reason, because Spags didn't want to make adjustments. I mean, I even get not making adjustments the first half, but at some point at halftime, you got to look at and be like, man, that kid's killing us. Not, we're just going to go out there and be Bob Sutton and just run what I run, and eventually we're going to stop it. Look, we've got athletes on the team, and we do. We've got athletes at every level. But when you stop putting Keys said this famously, I think somewhere in the first 7 weeks when we did the huddle, if you keep putting in people in position to fail, they're going to fail. Like, you can't have Sorensen out there in coverage, and Sorensen doesn't do coverage. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I mean, one of the things that I say to the people that work for me is if someone shows you who they truly are, believe them. You know what I'm saying? When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And obviously, Jamar Chase was eating us alive. So at some point, Spags, you got to be like, man, this kid's actually really good. Maybe we should treat him like a number one. I know it's a scary concept, but I think, I don't want to say the defense, because they can only play what the coach calls. So I don't want to put it on the players, because I think Keith said this again in a different huddle. Like, at some point you have to take it off the players. The players have to do what the coaches tell them. So they can only do what they're supposed to do or what they're told to do. So I lay this loss completely at the feet of Andy Reid and Spags. Spags for the defense and Andy because it seemed like he wanted to take his foot off the gas.
Yeah, and I feel like this is going to be our longest segment here. We
need to settle in. Here we go.
Here we go.
I don't
get your popcorn, baby.
As far as the defense goes, I don't have one side of this that I'm 100% on. Before I say that, though, I'm going to go back. I'll go ahead and go back to the offense here. We scored after our last touchdown before the end of the first half. We went around 26 minutes again before we scored, and that was a field goal, and that was the rest of the game. 3 points over 32 minutes. 3 points over 32 minutes. I don't care what, there's a part where I'm going to say I don't care anything about the defense here. I don't care anything about the referees. We'll get to all that. 3 points in 32 minutes of football after scoring our last touchdown is not going to cut it. Like, I understand you got a lead. It was 28-17, Jeff said, so that's an 11-point lead. You got to do better, though, than 3 points over 32 minutes. We had 26 minutes where we didn't score. And some of that is because our defense was giving up long drives, but we had, I believe, 3 possessions in the second half. And we were doing nothing to help our defense.
According to Pro Football Reference, we had 2 drives other than that field goal in the second half. We didn't even possess the ball.
We had 3 drives.
Man.
And we came away with 3 points in the second half.
That's interesting.
1 point a drive. That
a point a drive.
1 point a drive. That is insane. So there's a point where it absolutely is on the offense, because I'm not the whole thing. They have a share, maybe not an equal share. Don't hear me say what I'm not saying. Not an equal share, but they do share some blame in this loss, because 3 points over 32 minutes is not going to cut it. 3 points on 3 drives is not going to cut it. Now, kudos to them for no turnovers. I mean, Darrell Williams, I think he's 30 yards away from 1,000 rushing yards, or maybe it's all-purpose yards. Either way, kudos to Darrell. We saw another Gore play in this game. I think there's some question. I think there can be some question now with, first off, what I saw out of Niang at left tackle, he is not a left tackle. What I remember seeing of him, and I haven't went back and watched the All-22 because the NFL sucks and Game Pass does not have this full game available to me. It starts in the end of the second quarter, and I checked half the other games that went on in the NFL, and most of those aren't even complete. There was one game that it just had one team's possessions all the way through, and they didn't have any film in of the other team's possessions. So I don't know what they're doing, but anyway, that's digression there. But what I remember seeing is Niang was kind of giving up some Orlando Brown-like pressure at the very beginning, the few moments he was in, and then when Tooney moved over to left tackle, that left side looked pretty solid. It looked really solid with Tooney at tackle and Allegretti at left guard, to the point where, in my mind now, I'm wondering if we are just a right tackle away from having a complete line that could be a core of this offense for years to come.
Come back of Kyle Long?
He's just so injury prone, though, and that's the thing that, I think we're at that point now with Niang as well, that he's now, and to an extent CEH, where they have to prove that they can stay healthy, because, Niang sat out because he was injured. He comes back, and what happens? How many times has he been injured already? So, but to me, he didn't look like a left tackle over there. And I just wonder from what we saw, it'll be interesting if we see it again this week. But from what I saw, we might not, because the reports about Brown at practice this week have been promising. But it almost seemed to me like Tooney and Allegretti on the left side were like better than what we've seen. Definitely with Niang and Tooney, and to some extent against certain teams with speedier pass rushers than we've seen from Brown and Tooney. Just speaking of a combo there. Gooch, you looked like you wanted to say something. I can go on forever. I got a lot to say, so if you got something you want to add in here about this, go ahead and butt in.
Tony looked good, man. I mean, he paid the guy $80 million. It's not like he's never played left tackle before. He did it in New England, played in every spot on the line, I think. So I mean, it. Here's the thing: they look good this game, but Allegretti was part of that line that gave up all that pressure in the Super Bowl. I mean, sun shines on a dog's butt once in a while. You know what I mean? And he could have just had a really good game. Because I think that interior at Tooney and guard, Creed and Trey, I think they're some of the highest rated interior linemen in the NFL. And Brown was coming into his own. Niang will never be a left tackle. I mean, I'm sure Veach knows that, which is why they went and after Orlando. I do worry about Niang's injury though, but it's got to be hard being 6'7", 6'8", 300 some odd pounds, trying to move that frame at light speed for guys, that size. You know what I mean? There's got to be work to you got to keep all that on your frame. I mean, look at Mitchell Schwartz. He was a big guy until he, semi-retired, and then he automatically dropped 40, 50 pounds. It's got to be hard, but you got to maintain that weight. But I'm with you. Him, CEH is always hurt too, it seems like. Every other week. It's like he's dinged up. Of course, that could be product of playing in the SEC. Most of NFL players come from there. So you're already being hit by NFL players way before you even get into the league. I'm done. I just was thinking that while you were talking about injury.
Yeah, back to your Allegretti and sunshining comment. I would say though, and I don't remember if he played right guard in the Super Bowl or not, but you got to remember the center was Ryder, who didn't do anything, and let's see, Rimmers moved to left tackle, which means what? Wiley was the right tackle.
Wiley was the right. Yeah.
So if he was playing right guard, he had Ryder and he had Wiley between him, which is a totally different scenario than having Tooney and Creed between you. And maybe they're the reasons he looked that good, but either way, I think my point is kind of like, is the sum of the parts better? Just the little glimpse I saw, I'm at least questioning it. I'm not answering it, but is the sum of the parts better? Tooney, Allegretti, Creed, Trey, and whoever right tackle compared to Orlando or Niang, a left tackle, in Tooney there. So, and again, I don't know on that. I don't know if I have any more on the offense. On the offense here, I already said what I said. We looked great the first half.
We ran for 155 yards, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, we looked great. Darryl looked great. The offensive line looked great. Especially with as concerning as it was to have Brown go out pregame and then have Niang go out during the game, and you don't have Prince active and you don't have Kyle Long active, and So it was kind of a question mark, and one that I
Oh,
think was answered.
I think
Um,
Prince Winnebago is active now. Is that his name, Prince Winnebago? Prince.
That's close
Prince.
enough. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
Prince Winago or something like that. But yeah, maybe he should be. But if they're planning on Tooney just sliding in whenever Brown gets injured, I guess maybe that makes sense because they feel like they're deeper at guard and some of their guards can play tackle, whether it's
Well,
Tooney on the left or Wiley on the right.
doesn't Prince play right tackle?
I think Prince plays left tackle if I'm not.
Yeah, I do not know.
I think it's
Well, I was just
left
gonna say,
tackle.
like, there's a reason he was on the practice squad last year and they kept him, and now he's active. Is he? He's not active. Is he on the active roster this year?
He's on it because he's been inactive for the last couple of games,
Right. There's got to
at
be
least.
something that they see or think that they can pull out of him. I mean, in college he was pretty much a beast, but he was a work in progress. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he's good at molding linemen because he used to be one. So
Right.
they've got to see something to keep him on. And I feel like if he's strong enough to have on the active roster, maybe you throw him out there and see what you got. Because next year is going to be, even though the cap's going up, there's a lot of decisions that you got to make. And you're probably not going to get Rimmers and both Wiley back. It's time to get cheaper because Mahomes' cap hit goes to 40 million next year or something crazy. And I know that they can write it off as a signing bonus or whatever and get most of it out of the way. But
He will likely restructure of some sort. Yeah.
right, but you got to make some kind of decisions. You got to get cheaper. Tyreek needs a contract. I mean, the only good thing is that line is under wraps for, well, minus Brown. Creed, Tooney, and Smith are 4 to 5 years easy. You know what I'm saying? But you've got Tyreek, you've got figure out what you're going to do with Hitch. Is Bolton the guy in your eyes? Because then you can let Hitch go. You got Tyron who needs a contract. What are you going to do with Ward? Because Ward's probably going to get number one. You know what?
You're jumping
Ward,
topics.
yeah,
We've got
yeah,
that
yeah.
question
I'm
coming
sorry.
up, man. No,
We
you're
got
Welcome,
this
good.
probably about 40 minutes from now. We'll get to this.
look, welcome to the huddle. Y'all know how I do, man.
Squirrel.
I'm sorry, Steve. Go ahead. Keep going.
I don't know that I have anything more to say on the offense unless we want to talk about the Tyreek drop or not drop. Was it a
Ooh,
drop?
I got
Uh,
something to say about the offense real quick.
Go ahead.
You make Pringle a focal point of the offense for a couple weeks. He shows up and shows out last week. You give him 4 targets in the Bengals game. 4.
Right. And he runs back a kick for a touchdown for you.
And
Then
I
it
don't
gets
think
taken
that was
back.
holding. I watched that, and that was a ticky-tack freaking hold that they called on oh boy. And now we're
Well,
getting into the weeds because we're gonna get on the referees and y'all ain't gonna like me. So let's.
that's
Yeah.
okay. I heard Tobe today, and they have to be careful to not get fined or whatever. I mean, you would think making that kind of money. If it was me and
Yes.
I was making their kind of money, my anger would overrule my wallet. But whatever.
Yep.
What did
Um,
Yep.
Randy Moss say? Straight cash, homie. He walked in, paid that fine.
right. Yeah. Exactly. But I believe Tobe said he's seen it. He's seen that called before, and he's seen it also not called before. And he didn't feel like it necessarily should have, and I think most people would agree with that. But I also believe he said on that call that they had. He said GPS, but I think he means like the next gen, the tracking stuff. I believe it was Pringle on that kick return that he was talking about that they had him clocked at like 21.43 miles per hour
Nice.
which is like the first or second fastest. Like I think he said the second fastest run by a Chiefs player this year during the season. So 21.43 miles per hour is what he got up to. So, yeah, he should
Man, he
hit the
could be
ball a little bit
a
more.
car in a school zone. If he had kids, he could save gas by running.
That's right.
So, yeah, yeah, that's special teams though. But Pringle, I'm with you on Pringle. I mean, and this is one of the things that I was kind of concerned about last, coming into this week is we get Travis back, and then the offense all goes through Tyreek and Travis. And listen, I understand you have two playmakers, right? But I'm gonna go ahead and say this, and I don't care if Ryan or Dan or anyone else out there disagrees with this. If you look at all the great offenses, they don't run through just two players, or at least not when they're functioning successfully. In Cleveland, you have Chubb and Hunt, and then you have Landry and some tight ends. You trade away OBJ because you don't want that many weapons. Apparently, look at the Bucks offense. All right, you had before they either got injured or got COVID or got kicked off the team for quitting on the team, you had three basically number one starters. You had Evans, you had Godwin, you had AB, and then on top of it, you had Gronk at tight end. You have Cameron Brate at tight end. Who's OJ Howard? Is that their third tight end?
Yep.
In addition to their running backs, the Cowboys have Cooper, they have Lamb, they had Gallup, they had, I know I'm forgetting another wide receiver, they had Schultz, they have Zeke, they have Pollard. Like, there are teams that people know who their number three receiver is, or they have three receivers and a tight end. We can run an offense with more than just Tyreek and Travis being the focal point because guess the crap what? Having those two guys as our focal point hasn't exactly worked that great throughout this season.
I'd also like to point out, Keys, while you're talking about that, I was in flight, I think, part of that game, and I secretly turned my phone on to look at stats, and Kelsey had 25 yards on 5 catches, but that's not as many attempts that was thrown his way. And then I shut the phone back off. But I was just like, 25 yards? That's it? Like we're trying to pinpoint these guys. And to second what you said, to your point, every other high quality team that's going to make the playoffs this year, probably, you know who their first two or three receivers are. You also know who their running back is. Everybody knows CEH, but they know him for being hurt. Darrell is old Marty Ball, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Now, I know you're going to give me your analytics yards above expected, and I think he's averaging 4 yards a carry or whatever like that you like to throw at me when I complain about the running game. Oh, here go the HGs.
Oh, man.
But even still, the majority, I mean, his average is great, but when 4 out of 5 of your runs are 2 yards and then dust, and then one 10-yard, 15-yard run, you're not helping us any, really. I mean, and teams know, like, they don't have, I don't think it's have the Chiefs figured out. I think they already know. Bracket Tyreek, put two people on Kelsey. He's not going to throw to Gordon or Pringle or Bell or Gray or Pringle or DeMarcus or, I mean, I could just name off 5 of our receivers, but only 2 are going to get looked at. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't like throwing to CEH. With his injury history, I probably wouldn't like throwing to him either.
Well, and he's short. He's shorter than I am.
Is he?
CEH is like, he's listed at 5'6", 5'7", 5'8", but you know how it is. You always subtract an inch or two. I mean,
That's
Jeff
true.
knows. Jeff, you call high school basketball. You know you always subtract a couple inches from what's listed.
That's right.
I was listed in high school basketball. I saw a program where I was listed at 6'6", 6'1". I'm 5'7". It's like asking a woman her age. Anyway. You got more there, Gooch? All right, I'm gonna jump in with my analytics here for a second.
I'm just saying. We're too predictive, and it's great. Patrick learned how to throw the intermediate pass, and he hates playing that way. But everybody knows that 95% of the time, as long as we take away those two looks, Patrick is going to pat the ball because he's going to wait for those two to try and get open, even if somebody else might be wide open. We looked at all 22. We looked at all 22 last week, I think. And there was several plays where I watched one where Gray put his man on skates so tough, and he was still looking the other way. I mean, it's almost like it's weird that I say this because I think Mahomes is great. I think he's going to be great. He's got a long career ahead of him. But for some reason this year, it's almost like he's reverted back to rookie mode, where he's only looking at his first read, glancing at his second, but his first read is where he's going. But go ahead with your analytics. I see the HG zone. I'm ready.
I was only gonna say, Daryl is actually improving on the yards rushing over expected. He's still a negative, but I think he went from like -1.5 yards to only like -1 yard. He's closing the gap on CEH, who's going the opposite direction. He's actually getting worse. He was basically neutral all season, which means that he was basically getting the yards that the analytics nerd said that he should have been getting. Basically, no more, no less. Until the last one I saw, to where he's now dipped negative, and now he's getting under what's expected. And Daryl's actually moving closer to catching up with CEH and Gore. We don't have those numbers because he hasn't been getting the carries, and so the sample size is so small that he's not usually included on those graphs. But his yards over expected has been positive compared to the other two. Anyway, so Williams is trending in the right direction. Now, that said, I want to ask this question: who in your mind is the greatest? Maybe I shouldn't ask this, Gooch, because I know you're probably going to give me an old timer here. But who in your mind is the greatest NFL coach of all time?
Of all time, greatest coach?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it has to be Belichick.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, does Belichick say this is who we are, beat us, or does Belichick say, I'm going to find your weaknesses, I'm going to attack those, I'm going to take away what you like to do, and force you to beat me with at least one hand tied behind your back?
The second thing that you said, that's what he does.
So you can
Well,
kind
yeah,
of see.
anybody that's watched.
Go ahead.
Belichick treats every week. Was Belichick is almost like an old school college coach. He doesn't have a game plan because he doesn't have a set game plan. Like Andy draws up plays. He has his 15 plays. That's that. He knows who he's playing. That's pretty much it. Belichick, as soon as from what I've understood, is he's already planned in advance, and he has an idea of what you do best and how he's going to stop that. And if for some reason plan A doesn't work, he has plan B because your number two receiver beating us. Okay, well I can switch that. You know what I'm saying? And which is why I've got to say he's the best coach of all time because it's not like Belichick doesn't do big name people. Like the second you start to get big, Belichick cuts you, and he finds some third rounder with heart and some kind of that's able to be coached, and he puts them in the right position to win every single game. I mean, for all intents and purposes, and I know he's not going to get it, and I hate tooting this guy's horn, and I hate that you made me answer this question, but if he's not the coach of the year, because yes, I'm an Alabama fan, but no, I have no faith in Mac Jones's arm, and somehow that guy took that team into the midst of winning the AFC East when he really shouldn't have. Like, if that's not a tribute to his genius, really, you know what I'm saying, for what he's been able to do. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, Josh McDaniels is calling the plays. You don't do nothing in New England without Belichick's stamp. Anybody that's been there will tell you. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, I mean, that's just, it is what it is. And it seems like instead of us, it's like with Andy, it's this is my offense. With Spags, it's this is my defense. You know what I'm saying? There's no creativity.
See, and this is, I wasn't meaning to set you up for you to praise Belichick. This is where I was going with this, right?
Yes, you were.
There is a stark contrast between what our coaches are doing and what probably the greatest NFL head coach of all time does. And, that's kind of my point here is, once again, like, Travis and Tyreek should be the focal point of our offense when that's the best game plan to beat another team, right? To attack another team's defense. We should have the ability to beat a team just running the ball when we have to. And we kind of did without Travis. We showed the ability to spread the ball around more. We showed the ability in the playoffs last year against the Bills to run the ball when it was there. But there are times when it seems like they're not willing to play to the other team and they get too stubborn with this is who we are and this is what we're going to do as their identity instead of that's the difference. The Bill Belichick coach team, their identity is whatever whatever they need to do to win that week. And so,
here's another big part of that case. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Another big part of that is nobody's afraid of us anymore. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's the past 2 years. What have you heard? That offense is incredible. You've got to score touchdowns instead of field goals to keep up with that offense. The only person who's never said that was Belichick. The only person who's been able to keep it a game, even though you could turn around and say, well, Mahomes put up 32 points back-to-back games on Belichick. Yeah, he did. But Belichick caused him trouble because he wasn't scared of Mahomes. He wasn't scared of our offense. Nobody is scared of us now because they've pretty much, like you said, Travis and Hill are the focal point. I think you should spend a whole game throwing to Gray, Pringle, DeMarcus. Josh Gordon. Please, Lord, Josh Gordon. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's you've got all those guys, you're paying millions of dollars and you're not giving them hardly any targets. So nobody respects them because all they figure out is, well, we'll keep a hold of Travis and Tyreek. Mahomes will run for a few yards, but they won't beat us that way. People aren't scared.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? The mystique is gone.
I got a couple of responses to that. One of them is I'm going to push back a little bit and disagree somewhat. I think we saw that Brendan Daly is afraid of our offense when he kept going for it. And we saw at the end of the Bengals game that what's his name? Zach Taylor, is that their coach's last name? He's afraid of our offense.
Yep.
they went for it on fourth down. They didn't get it. They got bailed out by the refs, but we haven't gotten to that part yet. They still went for it on fourth down instead of kicking the field goal. So they're afraid of our offense because they didn't trust themselves to get 3 points and take the lead. They went for it on fourth down, and had it not been for the refs, they would have gotten 0 points, which is what they should have gotten on that drive. So there has to be an extent where teams are still afraid of our offense. Even if it's more like a myth than reality at this point. But I think it's also more about them not respecting our defense, and that was kind of the case the whole game. From the moment that the Bengals chose to defer, they were saying, you know what, you might score against us, but we're going to keep matching you guys. And that's kind of what happened throughout. So I don't think teams are at the point where they necessarily aren't still afraid of our offense. I think it's just where they're not as afraid, and they're definitely not afraid of our defense. And I imagine that any team that watched this performance, and we haven't really talked about the defense a whole lot, might think that they can get away with it as well. But if I can remember my other point here, because I had to, and you made me go back and say all of this, I probably lost it. But it's there somewhere, and it was a good point. You can believe that. So, oh, there we go. I'm already there. So kind of this one isn't a disagreement with you. This is kind of following the same lines, Gooch. That people kept saying you got to run the ball. We got to run the ball. We got to run the ball. We have to establish the threat of the run. We have to show teams that we're willing to run. You have to show teams that you're also willing for your game plan to make Travis and Tyreek be decoys for a game. You don't have to do it every game, but you have to do it enough that other teams respect that if their game plan is to do exactly what you say their game plan is every week, right? To double Travis or to double Tyreek, to play to take them both away, that the moment they come into the game and they realize, oh, the Chiefs were never intending to go to these two guys, and we've been completely set up, and everybody else is getting open, and then they start to panic. You have to have at least one of those games, if not 2 or 3 of those games. You have to be able to be versatile on offense and to show other teams that you're willing to do it. And that's kind of my bigger point. Just like establishing the run, you have to be willing to have a game, not because a player's out because of COVID, but you have to at least have a game or two where you're willing to show other teams, guess what? We're only using Travis and Tyreek as decoys this game. And we're going to completely scheme to have everybody else open. Good luck to you. Because the moment we get there and the moment we incorporate our willingness to run the ball and to run correctly, right, to utilize our blocking scheme and our running backs correctly, the moment all of that gets together and we become a Swiss Army knife where Reid and Bieniemy and Patrick can say, all right, we got a cork to get open, pull out the corkscrew. We got a hot dog to cut, pull out the knife. We got a piece of paper to cut, pull out the scissors. Whatever it is that we can show other teams, you're screwed on defense no matter what. And that's not to even talk about the whole defensive side of things and Spags' own stubbornness. But you can kind of see how the two play off of each other when your head coach is stubborn and this is what they believe our offensive identity is no matter what. And so the defensive coach does the same thing.
I'm gonna let Jeff talk here in a second. I just want to put out that that Swiss Army knife comment you made. We were that at one point. You know when that was? when we had Damian at running back because people had to respect the run, and Sammy was number 3 because Sammy could catch the ball. I don't know if they don't have the same rapport as Sammy did, but we were more explosive because you could try to take away Hill, you could try to take away Kelsey, but Sammy was going to get you 100 yards if you did that. You know what I'm saying? Which is why we had so many 20-yard plays downfield because who do you cover? You can only double 2 if the third one's going off. You know what I'm saying? Prime example, 2 years ago in Jacksonville, Tyreek got hurt first game of the season. Sammy went off. I don't know what's happening now, but they've got to do something, or unfortunately, we might be one and done. Like, you know what scares me the most? If the playoffs ended right now, we got to face the Chargers again.
Right. Yeah, and we'll get to that topic as well. So we're not gonna bite, Gooch. Yeah, I think the biggest question is, to what extent maybe did is Sammy's loss bigger than we anticipated, but also with that, how much of that is tied to a lack of growth on McColl's part? But I still think that Pringle should have a bigger role with this offense. And we're already seeing that, what Daryl and what Derek Gore can do with a little bit bigger role. And so, yeah, I don't know. I feel like we've talked a lot now about the offense. Not a whole lot to talk about with special teams. It was nice to see that that when Butker and Townsend got back, they didn't really miss a beat there. Like I said, we did have the kick return for a touchdown by Pringle, and then he, was called back by the penalty. I think there were 2 straight punt returns where I think one return was Hughes, and then the next one was Hardman, I believe, which I found interesting. And so, I don't know. I'm sure that Tobe had a reason for some of that. Maybe it was just because Hardman hadn't played very much to that point, so they wanted to keep him fresh. And Hughes, I believe, did get a little bit of playing time on defense, so maybe it was kind of a freshness thing. But anyway, Jeff brought up the defense at the beginning there. I'm going to be nicer to our defensive backs, not named Daniel Sorensen. And I say that not to push people's buttons, but again, this was early season Daniel Sorensen that we saw in this game. He's literally responsible for 1 touchdown as the cover 2 guy by biting on a shallow inside route. And so, there are 2 guys around there. You got to trust your teammates who are in the correct position to make the correct play if that ball had gotten thrown. Instead, he jumps that route and he leaves Chase wide open for the touchdown there, which is why I say that, because this was a rookie move. This was not a 31-year-old, NFL veteran move to do that. He certainly knows better, or should know better, and so that that's why I say that. But for the rest of the defensive backs, there were a lot of times where, I can't really say they had a whole lot that they could have improved. There's not a whole lot where I could say, if only he had done this. A lot of the times it was because the Bengals were willing to take shots with their outside receivers against our outside cornerbacks, and Spags he was willing to give up what should be a low percentage play. And the fact of the matter is that they were just out leaping our cornerbacks, or they were able to come down with balls and our cornerbacks weren't able to knock them out. And if this sounds familiar to you, it should, because guess what? This is exactly what the Chargers do when they're moving the ball against us on offense. And I'm not going to get in. I'm not going to bite into our other topic on this, so I'll save that for that. But I mean, this is kind of an issue at this point that there are offenses who do this, which, by the way, all the Chiefs fans want to see our offense do, right? Throw the ball up to a receiver and let them go get it. Because guess what? You don't have to worry about if a guy's covered. Do you think Burrow has to worry about if his guy's covered? Do you think Herbert has to worry about if his guy's covered? Maybe even Allen with Diggs to an extent. All these quarterbacks that they want to anoint the new Brady or whatever, they all have receivers with skills that Mahomes' receivers don't have. And that's that they have the ability to win a jump ball. They win contested balls. If Mahomes had a receiver that he could throw it an extra 3 feet high, and that receiver went up and got it 75, 85, 90% of the time, guess what? How unstoppable would he be if he had a receiver that it didn't matter if he was covered because he could throw it up and they'd bring it down? He'd have over 6,000 yards and 60 touchdowns easily.
He has that. His name is Gordon.
Well, we think. We don't know.
Look, I don't care that he's 30-something years old. He's been out of the NFL for 2 years, and you can't teach hands. That guy has them. They just won't throw to him. And we've been letting Jeff sit there for 50 minutes. We got to let him get in.
Tag, Jeff, you're in.
Tag. Well, I mean, continuing on the Bengals game, my thought is that Cincinnati had 6 first downs due to penalty, and Steve mentioned this in the Discord, and I teased him that he was stealing my thunder, right? But that seemed like a big number to me. So I looked at our other 4 losses, right? Stat freak, Jeff. I looked at our other 4 losses and how many first downs from penalties did our opponents get in those 4 losses? Baltimore, 2. Chargers, 2. Buffalo, 1. Tennessee, 2. And, in those games, Kansas City had more first downs from penalties in some of them. So, whether the penalties in this game are warranted or not, if we play Cincinnati again, we have to, from time to time, change to zone and continue to get pressure on Burrow with 4 or 5 guys. We did pretty well pressuring him in this game. We sacked him 4 times. We had 11 quarterback hits. But, 6 first downs due to penalty, it's just hard to overcome that.
So, yeah, I don't know if it's still the case throughout the whole season this year because I haven't checked, but I know coming into the season, and I'm pretty sure at least through part of the season, the turnover games may have changed this. But at least up until this season, Patrick Mahomes had only one of his losses had been a game where the Chiefs were the lesser penalized team. Every single other loss, and that one loss was the AFC Championship game against the Patriots that we should have won, I believe, or maybe it was the time we played them again, but it was against the Patriots. Other than that, coming into the season, Patrick Mahomes had never lost a game in the NFL where the Chiefs were the lesser penalized team. So this is kind of an issue. There can be some debate whether this is an Andy Reid coaching issue where his teams aren't disciplined, right? Because there are certainly teams that are always at the top in a good way of being like the least penalized teams. Like I believe maybe the Titans are the least penalized team in the NFL, like the Titans and maybe the Colts. I don't know. I could just be making up stats like Gooch does and throwing it out there.
Oh.
But I believe that's the case. So, yeah, you've brought up the refs. Oh, we never really did talk about the Tyreek catch. If you guys want to get into that, the drop, excuse me, whether it was a drop or not. And again, None of us have seen the all 22 because of the NFL, but I have seen the broadcast replay a bunch of times, and I have my own personal feeling, which again is mixed. Um, and that's that Mahomes made like a 72-yard throw, something like that, total distance, plus the horizontal distance while he was on the run, and gets it in the vicinity of Hill, but Hill still has to slow down. And I know there's some people out there that disagree with me on Twitter, but if you go back and watch it, there are people that think that Hill lost track of the ball and he runs to the right and then he has to correct to the left, and he jumps up and he catches it on his body there. But to me, what it looked like was, because it's hard to say that a 72-yard pass is underthrown, but it's more about when the ball's thrown, to how deep the players are. And to me, if you go back and you look at it, both Hill and the defensive back who are covering him at the time, like, they're far enough that if Hill doesn't run to the right, because the defensive back never turns to locate the ball, he's playing Hill the whole way. So Hill runs to the right for a second and gets him going right, and then he pushes off and he runs back to the left, and then he still has to reach over to the right, which is his left of the body, but facing the ball, he still has to reach over to his to his the left side of his body, but to the right, and catch this ball, and that's when the defender is able to knock it down. And so in my mind, if you watch this, and if Hill doesn't run to the right, the defensive back staying with him way, and it becomes a jump ball between the two of them. Because the time that Hill takes to run to the right, push off, and then go to the left, he still has to wait a second, and then he jumps up, as he often does when he has to make a difficult catch. And if he doesn't run to the right, he has plenty of time to just stand there, to wave for the fair catch. But the defender is also right there on his pocket as well and has a great chance to intercept this. So the only way, in my mind, and I could be wrong, but that's the only way that Tyreek had a chance to catch it. So if he did lose track of the ball, it still benefited the Chiefs, because if not, that defender is playing Hill, and all of a sudden it's a jump ball for the two of them as to who's going to catch it. So that's kind of my take on it. Is I kind of go both ways, because one, when I say underthrown, that's not a knock on Mahomes. Again, it's the situation. 72 yards, but they still kind of had a hold up for the ball, and Tyreek still had to reach back over towards the defender to catch it. And so, I'm kind of torn in saying one way or the other, because I still think it was intentional by Hill, and so I think it was a great play. At the same time, it was another one of those body catches instead of reaching his hands out. And I know, Gooch, that's probably what you were going to say. And then there are people that just, live and die by the black and white adage that if you get your hands on it, you have to catch it 100% no matter what the circumstances are. And so, I can understand the different perspectives, on here. And so, but I made my case for kind of where, probably not for where I stand, but how I'm at least trying to look at this from multiple angles. So you guys can go ahead and give your point of view here, or you can tell me definitively if you think it was a drop, it should have been caught, whatever.
Gooch?
No, you go.
Well, in that specific play, I don't really have, strong feelings. To me, it was one of many plays that, didn't necessarily determine the game. Usually in a game, especially one as close as this, you have a handful of plays, right, that determine the game. And to me, this particular play didn't really do much towards the outcome. It would have been really nice for Mr. Hill to make that catch. And there are those philosophies that it was the same as a punt. If the ball gets intercepted, not a big deal. They're deep in their own territory, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, it would have been about the 15-yard line if he'd caught it. I believe
Right.
this was right at the end of the first half, and so we likely would have got a field goal, which would have changed up things the rest of the game, especially if everything else had went the same. The Bengals wouldn't have been able to settle for a field goal there and run out the clock at the end.
Yes, sir.
Gooch?
I made a point during the live stream. Check out the RGR live stream on Mondays, 7 o'clock usually. Um, I said if Tyreek would have used his hands instead of his kick return specialist body to catch the ball, we may not be having this conversation. I said that in the live stream, and Ryan said if you catch with your hands, you basically have the thinking is you have from your wrist to your shoulder for them to knock the ball out. Here is my retort to that. Some of the greatest receivers of all time, Rice, Moss, heck, Hines Ward, even, um, those kind of guys, they all caught with their hands. You know what they did very rarely? Fumbled the football. Nuke, Diggs, Amari, um, the boys down in Tampa, what's his name, in San Diego, like Jarvis, all those guys catch with their hands. You know what they rarely do? Drop the ball or fumble. So there's got to be, even with defensive backs all over them, once it's in their hands and they've got it, it very rarely comes out. And I think that on that particular play, if Tyreek would have used his hands, he's strong, he's built. So I don't think anybody slapping at his arms is going to yoke that ball loose. He just doesn't know how to catch with his hands. And I personally think he cost us 7, at least 3. But even then, you're talking about now a tie game going into overtime and not losing or having the opportunity to win. I mean, that is, Joe Montana said it best. Football's an odd shape, it bounces funny. You know what I'm saying? It it's those little things though when and I obviously I'm not a wide receiver and I know it's hard. The game is hard. You know what I'm saying? But one of the things they taught us in middle school, high school, college, catch with your hands, bring to the body. Look it in, bring to the body. Um, and I just think that I said it in the thing. I think it's going to cost us one game. Well, it already did catch us this game, but it's the regular season, and I'm worried that those kind of, I don't know if it's because that's how he's always done it, or whatever, but I'm worried that that's going to cost us in a win or go home situation. Like if you think about it, and there's numerous things, and I know we're going to get into other things, and like I said, and like Jeff said, plenty of things, handful of plays during that game swings it one way or the other, and that's just one.
Right. Well, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how big Tyreek's hands are. I don't know if maybe that's an issue. And I'm not here to make excuses for him. That's just something that I wonder about, because he's only what, 5'9", 5'10", and some of these guys like Mike Williams and some of these other guys are 6'1", 6'2", 6'3". So, and I don't know. I don't know if that is a relevant excuse that they have bigger hands and Tyreek has smaller hands, and and maybe that's kind of why he's always caught that way. I don't know. Um, and so, yeah, I'm not gonna argue with anyone, one way or the other. Uh, if Patrick has all the time in the world to throw that ball to Tyreek's right side to Patrick's left, the defender definitely has no chance to knock the ball out. But, that's not a knock on Patrick because, again, he was scrambling and he managed to throw that 72 yards plus the horizontal yardage as well while he was on the run. So, I'm not knocking Patrick for that. I'm just saying, like, it's not like it was 100% probability catch. Let's go ahead and get into it. We've been saving it to the end. The referees, somebody posted on Twitter, and I've shared it, but something like 60% of the Bengals win probability came from penalties in this game.
67.
What I saw was like 61%. I mean, yeah, whatever, whichever one it is, it doesn't really matter. It's still, it's a majority of the win probability came from this. And that's saying something because, I don't have it here in front of me now, but I want to say that the Bengals didn't hit 50% win probability until either the end of the third quarter or sometime in the fourth quarter. Like it was at least sometime middle, end of the third quarter before they had a 50% win probability in this. But yeah, 60% or more of their win probability came as a result of penalties, as Jeff had already talked about the amount of penalties in this game. And the one thing that doesn't account for, when we talk about that, this just goes for the penalties that were called against the Chiefs. Most of those bogus that benefited the Bengals by giving them first downs. And in the case of that fourth down turnover on downs to give the Chiefs the ball with a minute plus left in a tie game and the chance to go down and win it, it gave the Bengals a new set of downs and then gave them the chance to just completely run out the clock. And so, this has all been talked about. What really hasn't been talked about much is the uncalled things, like the false start the Bengals had at the goal there. Was it first and goal, second and goal, whatever it was, where you can see the left guard clearly false started. There was another play, one of the penalties I believe that got called against Chris Jones for encroachment was actually false start on Burrow. That didn't, that against the Chiefs, and it was certainly the Bengals there. I mentioned the one play though, where people didn't talk about is the uncalled plays, like the one false start. Another one, which is what should have been an offsetting penalty, was I don't remember which one of our offensive linemen during one drive, but somebody got called for holding, and during the play, they were being face masked the whole time. The defender was face masking the offensive lineman that got called for holding. And this ticks me off twice as much as some of the other penalties, right? I mean, you could conceivably miss a false start. It's possible that you can miss a left guard barely moving. It's possible. But you're looking at the offensive lineman to throw the flag at him for holding so you can see the face mask is being grabbed. Like you're looking at him so you see it. That's not something that got missed. That is something that a ref intentionally chose to not throw a flag for. And that's ridiculous. I'll let you guys talk about some of the other stuff there.
Anger Keys is brought to you by RGR.
We here at RGR do not condone violence
against referees.
Well, no, we're okay with that.
I'm not cutting that out.
I think, and for as much as I beat on Spags and the defense today, mostly Spags, I will have to give the defense credit. I think Holtis said it best, and I was trying to remember when I saw it last, but I've never seen a team get 7 opportunities at the goal line after being stopped 5 of them when they shouldn't have got the first down. The hands to the face on Snead, like even the commentators were like, where? Like he might have gotten up near his neck, but he never was on his face. And that basically gave the game away. It was almost as if, and I know that we talked about this 90% of this guy's crew was substituted for COVID reasons or whatever, and these guys were determined to just make calls. And maybe, and I'm gonna tap into my Chiefs fan conspiracy here, but the one game that everybody was talking about was Chiefs Bengals, and everybody expected it to be a shootout. So you mysteriously miss the face mask of the offensive lineman or the false start because you need this to be a high scoring game because it's Burrow versus Mahomes in their eyes, and that's how they're marketing it. You know what I'm saying? And so all the plays need to be called against the defense if you see anything. The problem is the Chiefs were on the receiving end of a lot of horrible calls. And it's really telling when Andy says he would comment on them, but he don't want to get fined. Andy's rich. He could comment on them. The problem is that they would just come down hard on him. But I'm sure they sent tape, all kinds of stuff to league officials or whatever. I'm not sure if that's going to change anything, but this was, and I was actually on the Twitter. Is that what it's called? On the Twitter? I was actually on the Twitter.
You were tweeting.
Yeah, there you go.
Let me just pause here. For those of you who are older, there's no better way to let everybody else know how old you are than to use the definite article with whatever you're saying, right? The Twitter, the COVID, the Walmart,
the interwebs.
Sorry, Gooch. Put away the walker.
It was it was just a lot of people that were like, this is, and I agreed. It's the refs took control of this game, and they determined the outcome. But on the flip side of that, Hitch said today, he was like, well, we called freeway, which is basically they were going to let them score. But they called it after they had stopped them for 4 straight downs before they got the hands to the face. Because they assumed that they had stopped them, they were going to get the ball back. And then they called freeway. The problem is that I probably would have called it sooner. I probably would have just let them score. Because if our offense could, but there's no guarantee that our offense would find their groove. You would have to assume that Mahomes would have done it, right? Because he's done it before.
Well, I mean, this is where 3 points, in 3 drives over 32 minutes, kind of,
And I get that, and I want to say something else to your whole. They're scared of when we were talking about them not being scared of our offense. Maybe it's not that they're not scared of our offense. Maybe they don't trust their defense. Because now you turn around, you're like, okay, let me see. Because if I was a coach, I wouldn't be thinking, oh man, look at them over there. My thinking is, do I trust you guys to play mistake free for 2 straight minutes when you know they're going to be attacking? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not concerned about their offense more so than I'm concerned that, like what happened to our defense, those fluke calls happen that, out of nowhere. Because eventually Andy Reid's just going to uncork and you're going to have to chase all those 4 guys down the field. What's the probability that somebody's going to hold if they're attacking? You know what I'm saying? I mean, so then I would probably go for it too. And then flipping back, who knew Zach Taylor was smart enough to kneel the ball down to 2 seconds? I wouldn't have
Hopefully,
done
everybody in the world.
I wouldn't have done it. I'd have been like, let's get him. You know what I'm saying? It's 2 yards, boys. Let's handle it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just my take on it. Anyway, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I got nothing else. We've beaten the Bengals game to death, I think.
Oh, we have not, Jeff. Let me tell you.
You got more?
I got plenty more.
Oh, man.
I'm going to go back here a second, Gooch, to build off of what you said here, because, we haven't talked about this yet. But let's think about what it means that Andy wasn't willing to let them score until that part. So basically, Andy was saying, hey, look, defense, we trust you, right? We're going to call all of our timeouts. We trust you guys to hold them out of the end zone more than we trust our offense to go out and be able to match their touchdown, right? Because Andy could have let them in before the 2-minute warning. They could have done that then, let them in before the 2-minute warning, and then had at least 2 of their timeouts plus the 2-minute warning to go down the field and tie the game. Take your chances in overtime. But he didn't. He was trusting the defense on this one. The same defense that gave up 30 points, including 3 touchdowns and 168 yards to one receiver in the game. But this is hard because just with the Hill catch or drop or possible drop, so much to this, because in the one sense, as you said, they did stop him. They stopped him multiple times, not once, not twice, not 3 times. They stopped him four times, got a turnover on downs, and then they kept stopping them. And so, there's a part where you don't want to trash the defense. There's also a part where, it was like someone said, the defense isn't tackling, the defense isn't covering anyone. Well, what do you expect them to do? Because when L'Jarius Sneed tackles someone, he draws a 15-yard bogus 15-yard horse collar tackle penalty. When the defenders are doing anything more than they're doing, they're drawing a 15-yard, interference call. So, there's an extent to where you have to ask what more could they have done. And, to go back to, I know 3rd and 27 is a huge discussion. And, it probably would have been smart to, have cover 3 and maybe even have a man on Chase as well.
And not have Sorensen?
Yeah, but I'm going to say a couple things here. And I'm not saying this is 100%. I'm just... Right now, I feel like a defense lawyer, and I just want to take away beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, so I'm just going to present a couple things here. All right, maybe 3 things. So, in the Ravens game, the Bengals killed the Ravens by throwing jump balls to who?
Jamar.
To Higgins.
Oh.
Higgins had his breakout game a week ago against the Ravens. I'm pretty sure this was the best game he had. Joe got to where he was throwing him jump balls, and he was coming down with them. I believe he had 2 or 3 touchdowns in the Ravens game. So one of my points is, if you take away Chase, they probably go to T. Higgins, who's going to be just as successful as coming down with jump balls. Now, he doesn't have Chase's speed, right? So, I'm not saying he's going to run away from everyone like Chase does or be able to get as deep as Chase did, but he's probably still going to be the recipient of those jump balls if you take away Chase. And so, I don't think we can certainly say that alone would have done it. Um, the second point is, as I believe Jeff pointed out, maybe it was you, Gooch, it was Jeff, the one touchdown where Chase caught it. It was a short pass, right? Was that the first touch of his touchdowns? Because the second one was the Sorensen one, wasn't it? Or was that the first?
I don't know. I mean, the long touchdown pass in the first half was with like 2 minutes 14 seconds left, and
Okay.
Chase ran down the middle
So
of the
maybe the
field.
first one was Sorensen. Yeah, I'm talking about the one where he caught it short and he just basically outran the rest of our defenders and just outran everyone over and took the angle, and nobody was just quick enough. Even players that were close to him were not quick enough to catch up with him. This is part of my argument of, if you played zone and even if you played cover 3, you still could have ran into this trouble where they throw it to him and he just turns on the jets and makes everyone miss. Even if you have 3 guys deep, they have to take perfect angles and they have to have the recovery speed. With his speed, you can be taking a right angle and he changes direction, and you don't have the speed to now pursue him at a new angle. So it's possible that even with cover 3 or cover 4, that they still throw it to Chase shorter and let him pick up the yak. Now my third point is specifically for the 3rd and 27. Let's say that we bracket Chase there. Let's say they still throw it to Chase, and let's say that we break it up. What likely happens? Given everything else we know about the rest of this game, what likely happens there? Do they punt it on 4th and 27? Or do they line up on 1st and 10 again because they throw a flag? I mean, was this not the way the game was going? If we got a stop, the refs made sure that the Bengals got another chance to keep going. Right? Like, this game seems so biased. And Gooch, you talked about Andy Reid commenting on it, and he's commented before Christmas. He made the comment about not talking about the refs because he wanted to buy his grandkids Christmas presents. I'm going to go a step further. This game was really bad officiated because even BJ Kissel came out and talked about this being the worst officiated game he's ever seen. And this guy does not allow that as an excuse for a game. BJ doesn't make those kind of excuses, and he came out and said it. So that's in addition to all the people locally and nationally who themselves have said it, on top of Joe Burrow making his comment in his post-game interview about them getting lucky and getting, some calls 3 or 4 times. So, to me, BJ Kissel commenting really tells you how bad the officiating was in this game. Anyway, I made my 3-point case, for 3rd and 27. I'm not saying Spags made the right call by any means. And we'll never know how it would have turned out if one of those other things, had happened. I'm just saying, I don't think it's necessarily as easy as, go to cover 3, we'll be able to stop them, or, bracket Chase and we'll be able to stop their offense. Because we saw with the Ravens, that wasn't necessarily the case with, Higgins' explosion. And so, that's kind of the point that I wanted to make. But I will say, I remember at least one play where Willie Gay was lined up on Chase and took his shots at him, to try to slow him at the line of scrimmage. And, I think that would have, like, our best shot would have been to, if you want to have Dan Sorensen on the field, this is where you do it. You have Dan Sorensen and your cornerback that's covering Chase right there. They are pressing him. They beat his butt to the ground within those first 5 yards so they can have contact with him. And then you bracket Higgins instead. Like, I think you have to have a different way. It's kind of like, I forget who the tight end was back in the day, but, Matt Roth, who played for the Dolphins, and I only know that because he's a former Iowa Hawkeye pass rusher. And Matt Roth had a particular role against tight ends, especially. And the way he covered tight ends, because Miami played in like a 3-4, so he covered tight ends, his strategy was to knock them on their butt at the line of scrimmage so you didn't have to worry about covering them. This is basically what you had to do against Chase. Like, this was your only chance. And so, I want to throw out two more things because Jeff apparently thought we were done talking about the Bengals game.
No.
I want to throw out two more things. The Bengals did all this, and they didn't even try to run Joe Mixon, who is number 2 in the NFL, I believe, from what I saw, after Jonathan Taylor in rushing yards. They didn't even try to have a running game, really. And so, maybe that's because we got up early and the early running game wasn't working for them. But, this is just one point I want to bring up because I think the counterpoint to this is it's possible that, once again, as I've suspected at times before on offense and defense, Spags was trying to win this game without showing them how we would play them in the playoffs. And, I hate saying that like it's a certain thing. I don't know that. It's kind of a theory, and you hope that the coaching staff is smart that, if we lost, that this is true. But kind of like the Buccaneers game in Week 12, which I don't like that comparison, by the way, because the Buccaneers made adjustments at halftime on offense and defense and nearly came back and won that game. We didn't make the right offensive or defensive adjustments because we scored 3 points the rest of the game, and we gave up, 17 points the rest of the game? So it's not the same as Week 12 against the Bucs in that sense, because the Buccaneers made their adjustments on offense and defense and nearly, still won, where we didn't make seemingly any adjustments on offense or defense. But there still at least remains the possibility, or the hope, rather, that maybe Spags just didn't want to show them what he believes is actually the best method of attack. Any last words, Gooch? Any last words, Jeff?
I think you said it all.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and go into this next subject now. This is one that Jeff brought to us, and we've kind of been snipping at the heels of it to an extent, because right now, if we stay the second seed and everything, if everything stays the same, who do we face in the first round?
We would face the Chargers, right? If everything stays pat.
I'm not hoping it stays pat. This is the first week, the only week ever in my life. And I'm sorry to say this, Dad, but I'm a Raiders fan this Sunday.
Dang right.
Because if the Raiders win, the Raiders are in, the Chargers are out, and I would love for the Raiders to come to Arrowhead one more time.
There is that thought that it's hard for one team to beat another NFL team 3 times in a season, right? But I would like our chances with the Raiders.
It scares me because the Chargers played decently the game that they won, and we had 3 turnovers. I mean, the next game, it took us to overtime. I mean, I'm uneasy about it because if Spags is determined to throw in Neiman and Sorensen in coverage, it's going to get ugly because Herbert knows to target them. Herbert's no dummy. He's no slouch. I mean, this division if you take out the Broncos quarterback, and I know a lot of people think Derek Carr is a bum, but we've got some good arms in this division. Derek Carr is no slouch. Like he's not. He's taken that team that has no legitimate threat, and they're on the verge of getting into the playoffs. So he can't be a scrub, even though he plays for my most hated rival. And I worry that Herbert has that that it factor that Mahomes has with this team to rally him up to pull the upset. Well, they would try to, because what better way to put your stamp on a "we're here" than to beat the team that's run the division for 6 years. I am a team that's represented the AFC in the last 2 Super Bowls and been in the AFC Championship game 3. You know what I'm saying? You beat them, you can almost call yourself the favorite because everybody still considers the Chiefs the favorite. You know what I'm saying? If you knock out the favorite out of everybody that's left, if we're not there, this field's wide open. Now, that's not to say I'm not rooting for the Jags either. Oh, no, it's not the Jags. It's the Texans. Let's go, Davis Mills, baby.
Right.
Because if they beat the Titans and we win, this conversation is moot, because then we have the number 1 seed in the bye. But the team that scares me the most is the Chargers. Out of everybody in the playoffs right now, the Chargers scare me the most.
So here's the interesting thing, and Jeff and I were talking about this earlier. What team, Gooch, scares you the least out of the of the teams that right now, if the playoffs started now, that we could play? Who scares you the least of those teams? And that would be the Chargers, the Colts, and the Patriots right now. That's 7, 6, and 5 right there, seeds.
Who scares me the least?
Yeah.
The Patriots scare me the least.
And this is what we were talking about, and someone else, and I don't remember who wrote the article, wrote an article about why the Chiefs should purposely lose to the Broncos to try to secure the 4th seed and guarantee that they play the Patriots instead of the Chargers, or even if it was the Raiders. And I'm not too sure that the Bengals aren't going there themselves, or if it's just, as Jeff said, a matter of Burrow's leg being more injured than he's let on, because he's already said that he doesn't expect to play on Sunday. They've already had some players test positive for COVID, some who are ruled out. So there's an actual chance that the Bengals lose on Sunday and go from the 3 seed to the 4 seed, which would put them getting to play their first game against the Patriots instead of the Colts.
Well, it would be an interesting strategy. The problem is I think if you intentionally lose that game, that plan might backfire. Now, to answer the question, I'm going to get back to what we were just talking about. The number 2 seed, we've done it before. The year we won the Super Bowl, is that right? Or was it last year? One of the years we went to the Super Bowl, we weren't the number 1. We were the number 2, and the Ravens lost. And the playoffs just happened to come through Arrowhead. So we've been in this position before. Now, that's not to say the Titans are going to lose, but that's just saying, once again, that old adage, any given Sunday, weird things happen. You know what I'm saying? I think the Patriots scare me the least because for all that we've just talked, while we waxed poetically about Belichick earlier in this program, Belichick is still Belichick. And the one coach who has his number for at least a half to 3/4 is Andy Reid. Nobody consistently beats him other than Andy Reid. And the Colts scare me because of Jonathan Taylor. Because I believe they will run that guy. They're not going to all of a sudden fall behind and put the ball in Carson Wentz's hands. they're going to continue to run Jonathan Taylor, and eventually our defense is going to give up. Not give up per se, but those runs will go from 1 yard to 3 yards to 5 yards. Then all of a sudden it's close and they're milking clock. And then the Chargers just plain don't scare me. But I think if you walked into something and if you intentionally lost, and this is where I think karma or fate or whoever or whatever you think it is, if you're arrogant enough in this league to lose, to intentionally play, the last thing you want to do is give a team, especially one coached by Bill Belichick, bulletin board material. Because his whole purpose, Belichick it's so weird. He's like the anti-Andy Reid. He doesn't have the toys, but he doesn't know what off the pedal is. So he would put his foot on your throat and then try to cut your head off with it. Like, so if you intentionally lost to play his team, he would work double time to make sure that this playoff game is the only one you're going to play in.
Yeah, I don't think that they would come out and say that they're purposely trying to lose for that. By the way, I will point out, since you like talking about how Jonathan Taylor or how the Colts don't lose when Jonathan Taylor gets 100 yards or more, and I believe I told you that's descriptive, not prescriptive. The Colts got over 100. He got over 100 yards rushing, and they lost to the Raiders.
Well, Derek Carr's no slouch.
So
I'm just saying.
So anyway, but I think
before you go, let me throw this because we like to cross sports over here on the huddle. NBA teams aren't telling you they're tanking, but you can tell by the moves they make that they're tanking. You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden, Burrow, he's played 15 games, this, that, and the other. Now he's going to sit out because he's hurt. And mysteriously, a lot of their starters have COVID. All of a sudden, come on, man. They're resting up and they don't care about this game because they have Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is cocky and arrogant enough to believe that he doesn't need this game and they'll win a game in the playoffs. Just like he said with his little smirk, well, we got lucky with a few calls there. He knew what was going on. I mean, and everybody else looks at him like, oh, such and such is on the COVID list. Joe Burrow's not playing. Who are they playing this week?
Browns.
Well, okay, never mind.
But as I told you guys in the Picks Pool chat, Mayfield is not playing. So, tougher Browns team.
The Browns have already given up on this season. They've given up on Baker Mayfield. You know,
right. Yeah, but it's still a rival. I don't think they're going to give up, right? And especially because I think that the Bengals, this is kind of those games where, like I said, when Baker was out, Case Keenum, was it Case Keenum? Was he the one that didn't look that bad? Because you still have the Browns offensive line, you still have their running backs, and you still had their receivers. I don't know what all receivers are going to be playing for the Bengals, but, and I don't know, I think Mixon might actually be out for this game. I don't remember. I assume that some of the team got COVID because they were out celebrating their win. And if that's the case, then I wouldn't be surprised to see the whole ref crew be out with COVID this week since they were out celebrating their win. But I think the reasoning is more, they locked in that they were going to win their division. They locked in one of the top 4 seeds. And it's not the top seed. They have no shot at getting the top seed. So they know they're not playing next week for the possibility of having the top seed. And they know they're not getting a bye. So they might as well just not play next week. The worst they can do is fall from the 3 seed to the 4 seed. But they'll still have at least one home game. So if you're the Bengals and you know you don't get a bye, and you know you're going to get a home game no matter what, why not rest your starters on this extra game, this first year of having an extra game anyway, because it only means that you're dropping one. If you win, you stay exactly where you're at. If you lose, you only drop one seed. You're still, one of the top four, and you still get to play at home.
That's true.
So, I think that's kind of the thinking there. But one of the things that we were talking about is, if this played out to, it's possible if the Chiefs lost and fell to the 4th seed, it's possible the Chiefs could still play 3 straight home games at Arrowhead. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility if everything stays the same except for the Chiefs losing and falling to the 4th seed. It's not out of the realm of possibility that the number 4 Chiefs take on the number 5 Patriots in Arrowhead and win. And that the number 7 Chargers beat the number 2 Bills in advance to the divisional round. And that the Colts beat the Bengals and move on to the divisional round. And if that was the case, then the Chargers would play the Titans in Nashville, and the Chiefs would host the Colts in Arrowhead. And, once again, if the Chargers beat the Titans, which they could certainly do, and the Chiefs beat the Colts, then the Chargers would be the number 7 seed, and the Chiefs would still be the 4th seed, and the Chiefs would have them in Arrowhead. So they could, there's still a possibility, a somewhat realistic one, because these teams could win, right? To where if the Chiefs fell to the 4th seed, they could still play every single game at home before getting to the Super Bowl.
That was an in-depth breakdown, Keys. This breakdown brought to you by RGR.
But yeah, I mean, the hard thing is the NFL. What kind of irritates me though is the NFL scheduled the Chiefs game so that the Chiefs, have no say in the matter. They have to play to win, because they won't know until what? The Titans play Sunday, the Chiefs play Saturday. So the Chiefs won't even know, how the Titans and the Texans game is going. But if the Chiefs lose, then the Titans can rest their players if they wanted to, and they have 2 straight weeks of a rest, which to me is BS, but, whatever. NFL is what it is. They clearly have their favorites. When they made the schedule this season and gave the Chiefs the toughest schedule, they clearly had their favorites when they give us this referee crap, and now they schedule this. So anyway, we never did really talk about our chances of a Super Bowl run as the number 2 seed.
Well, let's let Jeff have it. He hasn't talked much.
Well, how's this for a standard media answer? Let's take it one game at a time.
Oh,
right.
Hello.
Jeff,
if we play, no, what's that?
I was going to say, this was your question, Jeff. You got to answer it.
If we play the Chargers, it's at Arrowhead. We protect Mahomes. We get pressure on Herbert. We get a few turnovers. Boom, we win. If the Titans win, we play the best remaining of the Bengals, Bills, and Patriots at Arrowhead. And like you threw out as a possibility, if the Titans would happen to lose and get beat, then we play the worst of the Bills, the Patriots, and the Colts at Arrowhead. So, how important is home field advantage? I think the 3 of us agree it's pretty important. And if for some reason the Titans lose, as Gooch mentioned, we would be in the driver's seat suddenly. So, there's so much that you can, like Steve went through, there's so much you can say, if this and what about that, and that seems likely, and maybe this could happen. And all that is very true. Let's get home field and beat the team that shows up in front of us. So, the answer to the question is, I think a path to the Super Bowl is is easily within grasp, even if we don't have a first round bye.
Gooch?
I'm with Jeff.
Yeah, I think probably the hardest point, though, is that the Chargers as a number 7 seed may be a lot better than the Patriots as a 5 seed. And what makes it particularly harder, and I'm not saying impossible, but particularly harder, is this is the third time that you've played them. We beat them once in overtime at their place. They beat us. Well, I mean, essentially, we really did, for the most part, beat them at home outside of the penalty or the turnovers. But the third time go around, is always hard when you're playing a divisional opponent like that 3 times in a season, which would make me a little shy about that. It's an interesting question, and a lot of it has to do with we've played what, all of these teams except for the Colts and Patriots this season. So we played four out of the other 6 teams, 2/3 of these teams already, and we have lost to every single one of them at least once of
Right.
those 4. And that's somewhat concerning. Again, though, if your hope is that our coaching staff is a lot smarter than they've acted or present themselves, and you hold to this theory that they figured that they might be seeing, any number of these teams again in the playoffs, and so they weren't giving their A game plan, like why would you want to give another team your best shot during the season? Which is what the Buccaneers did in their second half adjustments of Week 12. They actually gave us their Super Bowl game plan, but I can't get started on that. And so anyway, my point was Chargers is the 7th, Colts is the 6th, Bills is the 4th, and the Bengals is the 3rd seeds. These are not easy one way or the other. And so, chances of a Super Bowl run, I think it's a lot harder simply because these teams are a lot harder, I feel, than the ones that we faced the last couple of years. Gooch, you look like you want to say something.
Nope.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm gonna leave it at that. Yeah. I mean, I just think it's harder if you beat the Chargers in the wild card weekend, and if the Bengals win and the Bills win, then you end up with the Chiefs playing the Bengals in the divisional round, while the Bills would take on the Titans in Tennessee in the divisional round. That's not going to be an easy game. Of course, it would be it would be a second home game, but still. And so, even if the Colts win and we beat the Chargers, and whether it's the Patriots or the Bills, then the Colts play the Titans, and then we would play either the Patriots or Bills, which might be a little easier, but maybe not. So I don't know. I personally feel, and maybe it's just a lot of what we've seen this season from our own team, that it's really harder. And that's not to say it would be any easier with the number 1 seed outside of having the bye, and all you're really doing is lowering the amount of times that you have to beat a really good team. Yeah, I don't know. I think I've said all I can say about this one. I don't know that the chances are super great. But then again, any given Sunday. So Well, I think we're a little pressed here on time, so we'll just hit this last one and we'll have to get to the other one maybe next week or the week after, since
Okay.
everyone wants to know. But, we talked about the playoffs first because we might not want to beat the Broncos. But if we do want to beat the Broncos, we'll beat the Broncos if.
I don't think there's an if.
Well,
I think that's happening. I think there's going to be anger for how this Cincinnati game played out, and there is no if. We're just going to beat the Broncos. And just that tie over there.
I mean,
Yuck.
is this the ugliest thing you've ever seen in your life? This was stylish.
One of the only thing worse would be a
you
Raiders
know what?
tie.
I bet that's some really smooth and durable toilet paper you got there, Jeff.
Well, I'll go ahead and make the standard Windsor now while we're talking here, but no, I'm kidding.
I don't think it's an if. I think it's just a matter of when. I think the talk has been, and it's not even I think. Because of this game, there's been a lot of people are saying that Joe Burrow might be the best quarterback in the AFC. Obviously, because he beat Mahomes when he got a bunch of lucky calls. Now Mahomes is back to being Kirk Cousins. So I don't think. I think everybody always tries to compare Joe Burrow's like Brady, Herbert's like Brady, Mac Jones is like Brady. I think Mahomes is more like Brady than people realize, except that Mahomes takes those snubs and he's outward with it instead of Brady, who keeps them internalized. I mean, remember the Bears game? The Bears game, he counted up to 10 because he was picked 10th, and Mitch Trubisky was picked second. Then the game after they named him the fourth best player in the NFL, he counted up to fours. He threw those touchdowns. I mean, I just think that he hears all this, and I think that this is just going to be one of those. Okay, we lost, but this is who we are, and it's going to be a statement game going into the playoffs. That's what I think. On top of the fact that here's another reason why I think you want to keep the number 2 seed. Henry just got pulled off of IR. And although there's not a lot of rust to running the ball, he's still going to be rusty. And he's going to be fresh back from injury and probably not in the best game shape. So if for some reason Henry is back, but he's not himself, and they get upset, you still got to come through Arrowhead. Now you don't have to be the 4 seed and then hope somebody beats the Titans, hope somebody beats the Bills. You just slide right in, and you have to come to us. That's my take on it, boys.
Yeah, my take is very similar. Gooch, I was fortunate enough to be at the Broncos game at Arrowhead on December 5th. I happened to be on the huddle with you guys before that game, and I made the bold prediction that we are going to beat the Broncos if the players show up to the stadium, and as long as all the equipment makes it, right? It's not left on a plane, and we have to borrow some high school team's equipment. But yeah, for this game, I'm a little bit more hesitant to guarantee a win. But if we win the turnover battle and Andy doesn't rest starters in the second half, it's a guaranteed win. So yeah, I like our chances, even though it's at whatever the name of the stadium is there in Denver at Mile High. I think we can get her done.
Okay, I'll throw out a couple ifs. If Ron Torbert and his crew don't get assigned to this game last moment, we should win. If Spags does not put Sorensen on Jerry Jeudy to cover him, we should win. I I don't know that there's a whole lot out there other than, right now at this point, we don't know for sure if it's going to be Orlando Brown at left tackle or, what the deal is going to be there. But yeah, I mean, I think that, even with some of the things the negatives we've talked about in the Bengals game, that I think that this team, it's a divisional game. There's still a chance at the 1 seed. And so, what could be more fun? And I know there's some conspiracies out there that the NFL did this on purpose so that the Chiefs were playing more games because the Chiefs are their best draw, and that they moved the game to Saturday with the intentions that the Chiefs would be a Monday Night Football game the following week. And so, who knows? But I mean, if that's the case, then the refs have to make sure the Chiefs win this game, right? So, I mean, either way. But yeah. Anyway, I think that's where I'm at with it. So it sounds like we don't have a whole lot to say about this, guys. We had plenty to say about the Bengals, or at least I did. If you want to know more about what needs to happen for us to beat the Broncos, go back and watch the other one where we covered the Chiefs and Broncos. Jeff had a power outage, so we are now missing Jeff, and we're going to go ahead and close out our show here, Gooch. So pay those bills, because I don't have any money.
Special shout out to Jeff, brother. I hope you're being safe during that snowstorm. Everybody out there, please be safe. Winter storm's coming. We appreciate anybody that watches this content, whether religiously or in passing. Go back, check out all the other content on RGR, the videos. Remember the live streams on Monday. Seth Kaiser is on the Chief of the North live stream on Thursday. We've got film breakdowns during the week. Obviously, we're here. Just a sneak peek, we have a special guest next week, so you might want to tune in for that. Shop at the RGR merchandise store. Make sure you tell somebody you love them. That's the most important part. And we'll catch you in the next one.
And don't forget, feel better, Big Chief Sean, who is also going to be a guest on here along with Jeff, but is not feeling well this week. So
that's right, Sean. You get better, buddy. Oh, and follow us on the Twitter. I did that one just for you, Keith.
I'm sure you did. The Twitter. All right. Peace out, guys.
Peace out. Be safe.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.